The purpose of this screencast is to give you some guidance on the organisational structures questions that I've asked you to complete over the Easter holidays to hand in on Monday the 16th of April. I've asked you to look at questions on page 87, 89 and 91. So I'm going to go through these questions now and just give you some guidance of where you might look to find the answers and the sort of things you might need to consider. So firstly, page 87, you're looking at organisation in the public sector. The public sector is any organisation that's owned and controlled by the government, and this case study is looking at the NHS. So the first question is, how might patients' needs be better served in a decentralised NHS? The case study talks about devolvement of power to general practitioners, GPs, so giving GPs more control over the budget that they have and how they spend it. So in order to answer question 1, you might need to think about how people's needs might be different in different areas of the country. So if your GP is able to provide the services that most people need in your area, that might better benefit patients. So for example, if you're looking at an area where income is low and there's quite high unemployment, it tends to be an area where people have quite poor diet, there's problems with people smoking and drinking, less people have gym membership, less people go to things like Weight Watchers, so there might be more health problems associated with overeating, smoking, drinking. So perhaps your GP might use the money to deal with and help people cope with those kind of illnesses or illnesses coming from those kind of causes. So perhaps that might be an example you could discuss in terms of how patients' needs might be better served. In terms of how the new system could benefit some people more than others, perhaps you might think about where the power has gone from and to. So power going, power and control over the budget, less being within the Strategic Health Authority and the NHS Trust, and more being within the Primary Care Trust and the general practitioners. So there could be some benefit in terms of who has the power and who doesn't. There could also be some kind of benefit in terms of, well, patients. We've said previously that a decentralised NHS might enable primary care trusts to provide the services and treatments that people in their area need, so perhaps that might benefit some people. If that's at the expense of other treatments or other services, perhaps there might be people who lose out, so you might want to consider things along those lines. Page 89 now moves on to the show what you know questions. So, question 1, why is a decentralised approach to organisational structure likely to be more costly for a firm or organisation than a centralised system? Well, think about if a centralised system, if we're making decisions about marketing and purchasing, if those decisions are made in a head office, it's much more likely that the head office will be able to negotiate bulk buying discounts. So that might be in terms of purchasing things, and in terms of marketing there might be a more coherent, standardised approach which is better at communicating the message. So perhaps you might discuss issues along those lines for question 1. Question 2, is a firm operating an organisational structure that is centralised more or less likely to be able to respond quickly to changes in the local environment? Well, a centralised decision would mean that the branches would have to identify any change or problem, communicate to head office, wait for head office to give them advice on what to do, and then action the steps that the head office had advised them. So compare that with what would happen if decision making was decentralised. Do you think the centralised approach is likely to be more quick to respond or less quick? Question 3. Is Roman Abramovich, the Russian oligarch and owner of Chelsea Football Club, likely to favour centralisation of the football club or decentralisation? So, if you were the sole owner of a football club, would you want most of the decisions to come through you and be made by you, or made by people within your team? Have a little think about that and use that to answer your question. Question 4. Consider whether you would prefer to work for a firm that is centrally organised or one that is decentralised in each of the following situations. So you as a 16-year-old in your first job, as an 18-year-old after A-levels, and as a 21 or 22-year-old with a degree. So what they're asking you to discuss is how you might feel as your age and maturity and experience increases. So in a centralised organisation, there is very little room for freedom. People do what they're told to do. There's a very standardised approach, which can give people a lot of reassurance if they don't have very much confidence, don't have much skills or experience. But a decentralised organisation is going to give workers far more autonomy, control, opportunity to demonstrate their creativity in terms of solving problems. So would be more suitable to someone with more experience and more qualifications. So I hope that helps you answer question 4. Moving on now to the questions on page 91 that relate to the Forestry Commission. The first question asks you what is meant by the term hierarchy. Now if you can't answer that, you need to look at the key terms, or you need to go and listen to the screencast for the theory on this subject, on this topic rather. Question 2. Organisations can be structured by product, function or geography. Explain each of these using an example to illustrate your understanding. Well, the screencast that covers the theory for this unit shows an organisation structured by function. So that's people like looking at different departments. So marketing manager, marketing supervisor, marketing assistants, finance director, manager, assistants, production manager, supervisor, assistant. So that would be an organisation structured by function. So you can go and look at the screencast if you're not clear on that. Structuring by product would be having teams, multifunctional teams, okay, so finance, marketing, production, quality, looking at a product. So you would have a manager for product A, a supervisor for product A, and then assistants for product A. Then the same for product B, then the same for product C. So that would be structuring the business based on product. Finally, you might structure your organisation based on geography, so looking at different regions. If you do read the case study looking at the Forestry Commission, they do describe a organisation that's structured by geography, so hopefully that should help you with question 2. Question 3. Contrast the benefits received by the Forestry Commission from centralised and decentralised decision making. So here you need to be looking at the 3rd paragraph for centralised and the 4th paragraph for decentralised, looking at the benefits of centralised decision making in terms of standardisation, in terms of economies of scale through bulk buying, and decentralised thinking about the autonomy and freedom and creativity and local responsiveness that people are able to demonstrate in that structure. Finally, in your own words, explain why the Forestry Commission benefits most from a flat organisation structure. Well, a flat structure has very few layers, which means there are not very many management positions, and the managers have a wide span of control. So they are able to, or they have to, delegate quite a lot of responsibility to workers. So think about how that might affect them in terms of the wage structure. Obviously managers, the more people you have in management positions, the higher your wage bill is going to be. How motivational that might be for workers if they have freedom and control and have things delegated to them. Think about how the chain of command will be shorter, so communication should be quicker up and down the hierarchy. So really you want to be looking at the final paragraph to help you answer this question. So, I hope this has helped you answer the questions that you need to for your holiday homework. Don't forget this needs to be handed in on Monday the 16th of April. Thank you for listening.